Okay, everybody, and thank you and welcome to today's CUTR webcast. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Ms. Karen Sagerman, and I'll read her brief bio. Karen is a senior research associate with the Planning and Corridor Management Program at the USF Center for Urban Transportation Research. Ms. Sagerman has 30 years of experience in urban and regional planning with expertise um, in transportation, mobility planning, growth management, access management, corridor preservation, and public involvement. Ms. Segerman holds a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And
Champaign.
Champaign. Okay, Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank all of you for joining me today for part one of what to expect when you're expecting a highway bypass, considering land use and transportation impacts of a bypass alternative in small and medium-sized communities. This presentation is based on research performed for the Florida Department of Transportation. The project manager was Gary Socolow. My research partner for this project was Christine Williams and also Danny Shubb, who was a graduate student with us at the time. A bypass is simply a road passing around a town or its center to provide an alternative route for traffic that is just passing through on the way to another destination without any intention of stopping. The bypass road connects the original road at either end of the area bypassed. A bypass can range in length from a few hundred yards to many miles. The length of the bypass depends on the size of the community or area being bypassed, the availability of existing roadways where the bypass will terminate, and socioeconomic and environmental concerns. Major state highways are often the main street in small and medium-sized communities and serve regional through traffic as well as local travel. Your community may be asked to consider a bypass for any number of reasons. One may be to relieve traffic congestion. Another may be to minimize heavy truck traffic and the noise, fumes, and vibrations that come with them. We've all been sitting at an outdoor cafe or walking down the street when a big truck goes by, causing so much noise that you have to stop your conversation until the truck has moved on down the street. Many community residents dislike truck traffic in the downtown. Another reason may be to reduce emergency response time. Emergency services such as fire and police stations are often located in the downtown of many smaller communities. When the main roadway is congested, it is difficult for emergency vehicles to get to incidents quickly. Finally, a major reason for a bypass in Florida is to improve travel time on the roadway. Bypasses provide for the movement of people and goods throughout the state on Florida's strategic intermodal system. What is this strategic intermodal system? Florida's strategic intermodal system, known as the SIS for short, is made up of highways, rail, ports, and airports of statewide and regional importance. This system guides strategic investments linked to Florida's economy. Roadways that are part of the SIS are intended to support economic activity in the state through the efficient movement of goods and services. Most highways that pass through small communities and rural areas are part of this system. As you can see from the maps in this area, you can see that many rural areas contain these strategic intermodal system highways. All of these highways highlighted here are on that system. When the roadway is a main street, freight and other fast-moving vehicles come into conflict with slower-moving local traffic, in addition to bicycles and pedestrians. When determining which roadways should be part of the SIS, the department does consider community livability. Guidelines discourage roadways with heavy truck travel through residential and commercial areas that may have high levels of pedestrian activity. Therefore, the nature of traffic on a state highway calls for consideration of a bypass, particularly when a SIS highway is the main street of a community. Let's look at some examples. US 301 is a north-south CIS highway that extends through Florida from I-75 in Ellenton, that's down in Manatee County, to the St. Mary's River at the Florida-Georgia line in Nassau County. In the DOT District 2, US 301 covers 103 miles. 2 bypasses are under consideration along this stretch, one in Baldwin and one in Stark. This important transportation link also serves as an essential commuter route as well as a freight route. The Department of Transportation is proposing to construct a bypass around the town of Baldwin. US 301 through Baldwin includes 2 railroad crossings and high volumes of commercial vehicles. The proposed bypass will begin near Interstate 10 at US 301, which is here, and go north and connect with the portion of US 301 currently being widened to 4 lanes. It's way up here. It's near Hap Road in Duval County. A project development and environment, or PD&E study, evaluated alternatives to alleviate congestion within the town of Baldwin. After public input, the Department of Transportation selected Alternative B as the preferred alternative that will move forward into the design phase. The proposed 4.1-mile bypass includes 2 railroad overpasses and an overpass of the Jacksonville-Baldwin Rails-to-Trails bike and pedestrian paved path. You can see Alternative B is this darker one that goes all the way around to the west of the community of Baldwin, all the way out here before coming back into 301 here. And then you can see it on this overlay map as well over here. Again, it's coming all the way out around from the developed area back into 301. Reasons for putting this bypass in Baldwin were stated to alleviate congestion within the town that's caused by the intersection of US 301 with US 90, a mix of local and through traffic, high truck traffic volume, including 18% on US 301 in downtown Baldwin and 25% on the 2-lane segment of US 301 north of US 90. Also 2 railroad crossings that restrict traffic sometimes for more than 20 minutes while the trains are running. US 301 also goes through Stark, Florida, where a bypass is being planned and scheduled for construction in 2016 with an estimated cost of $90 million. The 7.3-mile long limited access 4-lane bypass on the west side of Stark will be built between County Road 227 and County Road 233. You can see that again this is this town of Stark in the yellow, outlined in the yellow, and the bypass here goes all the way around the western outskirts of the town, again avoiding the city limits entirely. This rural alternative will be a limited access roadway constructed with 2 travel lanes in each direction, paved shoulders, grass medians, and ditches to carry water. Grade-separated interchanges will be provided at State Road 100, which is right here, State Road 16, which is up here. Overpasses will be constructed over County Road 229, which is right here, and the CSX Railroad and County Road 100A, which are down in this particular area. As you can see, the state also looked at a no-build alternative and a transportation system management alternative, and both of those were found that they don't really provide the capacity improvement needed and does not relieve all the congestion that's anticipated to occur in the town. Again, reasons for this bypass included relieving congestion on the US 301 corridor within Stark and providing the needed capacity for future traffic growth. The bypass is projected to carry 25,300 vehicles a day in 2020, with an increase to 31,400 vehicles a day in 2040. The bypass provides an alternative route for trucks carrying freight without having to stop at all of the traffic signals in downtown Stark, as well as not being delayed by the railroad crossing or the school zone that's in the city. Another example of a bypass consideration is in Newberry, Florida. State Road 26 is an east-west route across north-central Florida. The highway's western terminus, it is at its intersection with US 19, 98, and 27 in Gilchrist County. That's all the way over here by Fanning Springs. And it travels through Gilchrist County and Alachua County and beyond. So it heads off this way. It travels through Newberry, right here, which is west of Gainesville, and becomes University Avenue as it goes into Gainesville. Several bypass options were considered in Newberry, including an in-town one-way pair with these options. You can see it starting to the west here and moving north along this path. And then one of the options is this turquoise one that goes along Northwest 5th Avenue. And the other is this purple one, which is County Road 26A, taking 26 from along here, which is straight through the downtown Newberry, and kind of sending it still through the town, but outside of the downtown area. Other considerations included going completely around the town. So there was a northern bypass consideration that went up here and all the way around the developed area, back into 26 up at this location. And then one that went south, just kind of almost like a circumferential route all the way around the town. Again, reasons for this bypass was to alleviate congestion within Newberry caused by anticipated future traffic volumes, problems at the intersection of US 26 and State Road 26 and US 27, the mix of local and through traffic, high truck traffic volumes as well. At this time, a bypass is no longer being considered. The Department of Transportation is focusing on transportation system management projects along State Road 26 through Newberry to accommodate future traffic volumes. While a highway bypass can reduce traffic congestion through downtown areas, increase mobility between regions and the economy, and reduce emergency response time, there are also adverse impacts associated with a highway bypass. Impacts may be categorized as direct or indirect. Direct impacts are generally immediate and can include the conversion of productive land, the removal of existing buildings to accommodate new roadway, and any changes to the overall character of the affected area due to construction. For example, the removal of existing homes in the path of a planned roadway is considered a direct impact. Indirect impacts from a transportation project tend to occur over a long period of time and can be cumulative. Indirect effects are defined as those that are caused by the action and occur later in time or farther removed in distance but are still reasonably foreseeable. These impacts may involve changes in the overall development and growth patterns of the area along the road that is bypassed, the area adjacent to the bypass itself, and areas between and beyond the roadways. Land use, livability, community character, and local mobility surrounding the bypassed roadway may be affected. A bypass that provides access to the undeveloped land can affect the rate of growth and the development patterns of an area, as illustrated by the traffic and engineering and land use planning cycle. As you can see from this cycle on the screen, after widening a road, people travel faster and further, land prices rise, landowners request rezonings to residential and community and commercial. Under that political and development pressure, land is often rezoned. Subdivisions and businesses develop and people move out to larger and cheaper homes. Congestion on that route out that way develops and demands are made and the road is widened again. So we just can kind of continue to go on this cycle. There also may be a shift in the location where development occurs. For example, developers may seek to build intense commercial development around new highway interchanges. Strip commercial and industrial uses may be built on roadways between the developed area and interchanges with the bypass, and developers of low-density residential homes may build subdivisions on land made more accessible by the bypass. Big box retailers may be attracted to locations along the bypass. As a result of the redistribution of development beyond the existing community, economic development or economic activity shifts as well. An example of bypass construction can be found in Freeport in Northwest Florida. In 2008, the department completed a $24.5 million 5.5-mile bypass of US 331 around the town. US 331 is a popular route for tourists to take to and from such beach locations as Destin and Panama City. Freeport looked forward to the opening of the new road because it would help alleviate traffic congestion in their downtown. Therefore, the city did not expect much of a negative impact. Of course, shortly after the bypass construction was programmed in the department's 5-year work program, indirect impacts began to appear. Land along the bypass was put up for sale. Over the course of the next several years, as evidenced by the U.S. Census figures, population increased by 50%, land area by 55%, households by 40%, along with a 5% decrease in density, a sure sign of sprawl. An example in the change of livability and community character is also evidenced in Freeport. The local post office was once located on Main Street, 331, where many locals could access it by walking or bicycling. There were even benches out front for patrons to stop and rest or chat for a while. The post office is now located on the bypass, requiring most area residents to drive to it. The front is, of course, consumed by parking spaces. Many preconceptions exist regarding the effect of a bypass on the community's economy. A common concern is the potential for the bypass to have a negative effect on downtown businesses, including decline in sales and decreased business activity in town along the bypassed route. Downtown businesses with a strong local customer base will likely stay put, particularly if the community takes steps to maintain the downtown as a place that people want to be. There is likely to be a redistribution of businesses from the downtown toward the bypass. Some small businesses that rely on customers from passing traffic, such as restaurants and gas stations, will close or move to the bypass. National chain stores will likely pop up adjacent to the bypass, along with a change in business owners from local to national. Some view a bypass and the access it brings to undeveloped land as an opportunity for economic growth. This type of growth, however, occurs mostly in communities that are near growing metropolitan areas. Very small communities with populations less than 2,000 may lose population as a result of the bypass. The Department of Transportation examines both direct and indirect impacts of a bypass. Impacts are studied during both the planning phase and prior to the project development and environment or PD&E phase of a project. This is accomplished through FDOT's Efficient Transportation Decision-Making, or ETDM, process. ETDM is a process that involves an environmental screening tool, or EST, which is an internet-accessible interactive database and mapping application. Local governments, interested citizens, and other stakeholders can and should participate throughout the ETDM process. During the planning phase of the process, a project is being considered for inclusion in a long-range transportation plan, such as the Strategic Intermodal System Plan or a Metropolitan Planning Organization's Long-Range Transportation Plan. A number of possible locations for the proposed bypass are evaluated during the ETDM process and the PD&E phase. Depending on the size and complexity of the project, the PD&E phase may take several years to complete. A socio-cultural effects, or SCE evaluation is an integral part of the ETDM process, and FDOT must follow specific procedures in conducting the evaluation. In general, issues considered as part of the socio-cultural effects evaluation are categorized as social, economic, land use, mobility, aesthetics, and relocation. Comments gathered during the planning screen are used to guide the PD&E efforts and accomplish several objectives. The project should consider environmental and community effects from the earliest stages of project development and ensure that community issues are identified and potential project effects are considered and addressed in the decision-making process. The project should avoid or minimize and even mitigate, where feasible, adverse community effects, and they should identify conceptual design solutions to promote livable communities. Direct and indirect bypass impacts on land use and the transportation system can be avoided, minimized, mitigated, or enhanced through specific planning efforts. Development and implementation of a mobility plan is recommended for local governments when a bypass becomes the preferred transportation alternative. Planning efforts to address all impacts, including land use impacts, cannot be initiated by FDOT, but must be initiated and directed by the local government. FDOT may lend technical assistance and resources to that effort at the local government's request. Planning efforts must be carefully guided to ensure the new bypass, the bypassed road, and indirect land use changes are compatible with the community and the community's vision. Local governments with jurisdiction over land in the vicinity of the planned bypass should enter into cooperative agreements and develop mobility plans together, ensuring sprawling development does not occur due to the bypass. The focus and emphasis of a mobility plan includes a focus on moving people and goods, not necessarily vehicles. It includes putting less emphasis on relieving automobile congestion, and puts more emphasis on expanding and reinforcing mode choice, such as transit, sidewalks for pedestrians, bike lanes for bicycles, and movement of freight. Policies to help improve people's access to key services include encouragement of a mix of land uses, including housing, in-town, suburban, and local centers, a focus of major travel generators, such as those involving large amounts of employment, shopping, services, or leisure activities in town centers, and near to major public transportation if it's available. Locating day-to-day facilities like groceries and dry cleaners in such a way that they are accessible by walking and cycling. Accommodating new housing principally within existing developed areas. Plan for increased development intensity at locations that are highly accessible by public transportation, walking, and/or cycling. Locating retail and entertainment in town center sites to maximize accessibility using multiple modes of transportation. Consideration for meeting the accessibility needs of disabled people in all development in terms of location, parking, design, layout, physical conditions, and the interrelationship of uses should be considered. Consider network for all modes in a series of layers. Different modes and different reasons for a trip drive what route will be taken. For example, delivery trucks will use major roadways because they are often built to accommodate truck movements, and travel is often faster on these routes. A bicyclist may choose more local roads where the lower speeds allow them to avoid heavy truck traffic. Think about how the transportation system can support the various modes for a variety of trips. Planning concepts such as complete streets focus on providing a travel environment suitable for all modes. Connectivity between the different modes is key to seamless travel. Planning the desired street, bicycle, and pedestrian networks is an important part of the mobility plan. The community can identify gaps in the network where existing local street system does not provide land access nor adequate circulation throughout the community off of the main roadway. New streets are the most effective when a grid street pattern is followed. This figure illustrates what a street network might look like, including the recommended distance between roadway types. Note the service road concept shown parallel to the major arterial. Such a road provides additional access to land uses, which reduces the need to access all uses from the major roadway. The result is greater ease of vehicle movement on the arterial. The overall grid structure allows several different routes from one point to another, which lowers the traffic volume on any single roadway and provides alternatives when a road is blocked by an accident or other event. In addition, one-way streets should be avoided in favor of two-way streets that support circulation and activity. Another valuable component of a mobility plan is access management. The impacts of a bypass on land use and the transportation system can be minimized by controlling access to the bypass itself and also by managing access on the bypassed roadway. An effective method to minimize sprawl development along a bypass is to construct interchanges only where the bypass exits and enters the bypassed roadway, with no other access to the bypass permitted. Construction of the bypass in this manner will not interfere with the existing local travel or attract development to outlying areas. A less restrictive approach is to provide interchanges at crossroads with major roadways. The Department of Transportation will assist in determining the appropriate access control to be established on a bypass that is part of the strategic intermodal system. Development may intensify along the bypass route in the areas leading to and surrounding each connection with the bypass. The mobility plan should specifically address land use, access to land uses, and network connectivity in these locations. The Department of Transportation and local governments may work together to determine access management measures for the bypassed roadway and other connecting roads on the state highway system. This example is our bypass from Stark, Florida again. Notice that the preferred alternative completely skirts the community. You can see it on the map here, where it goes outside of what is the city limits, which is this dashed line here. And on this map up here, the aerial photograph, this is the route of US 301 today. And then above it here in the blue, you can see the bypass, the proposed bypass, which goes out into undeveloped land. The vacant land between the community and the proposed bypass holds the potential for growth, especially along arterials that will connect them. Also notice the lack of a developed roadway network in the area. Local trips from new development will likely overburden existing arterials as well as consume capacity on the bypass itself. The street network between the downtown core and the bypass should be addressed in the mobility plan. In addition, access management plans should be developed for each major arterial. Plans to improve the transportation network and manage access will help to reduce local trips along the bypass and contribute to increased local economic activity in the downtown area. A growth inducement analysis can establish whether project alternatives are likely to induce growth or alter the planned pattern of development. Projects that are likely to influence regional land development location decisions include bypasses that provide convenient access to vacant developable land. This is especially true if the bypass is located near a metropolitan area. Determining if a bypass would influence intra-regional land development decisions is not necessarily straightforward. The analyst may be inclined to rely on the local government comprehensive plans for future development patterns. However, such plans do not often reflect land use changes that may be expected as a result of new roadway access. Methods for analyzing the growth inducement potential of a project are discussed in detail in the research reports. If conditions are generally favorable for growth in a region, then a bypass can dramatically influence the rate and location of development. Key variables to consider that are considered are change in accessibility, change in property value, forecasted growth, the relationship between land supply and demand, the availability of other services such as water and sewer, other market factors, including growth trends, and public policy such as the ability or inability to change land uses. Notice here the developed areas between the central city and the bypass. Notice where the bypass joins the old road. So here's the undeveloped land, and where the bypass will be joining US 301. What type of development may be expected in these areas? Future land use concepts in the mobility plan should identify areas where specific land use activities are expected to occur, such as freight activity versus retail and services. Likely land use changes resulting from construction of a limited access bypass include intensive development near interchanges, strip commercial and industrial uses on roadways between the developed area and interchanges with the bypass, and low-density residential development on nearby land made more accessible by the bypass. The mobility plan should address appropriate development location, density, and intensity. As a result of new development, great potential exists for local trips on the bypass between interchanges due to inadequate connectivity of the local transportation network. Over time, travel time savings initially sought by the bypass may be lost. Often, a roadway that serves as a main street has undergone changes over time to maximize the capacity of the road and accommodate large trucks. So a mobility plan can be used to improve livability on the bypassed road. Incremental changes may have robbed the corridor of its community character, such as natural and cultural features that range from street trees to historic civic structures. Pedestrian and bicycle facilities are likely to be minimal, as available right-of-way was previously used for traffic lanes, creating wide crossways unfriendly to pedestrians and bicyclists. After construction of a bypass, the bypass roadway is likely to have less traffic and be out of scale with desired community character. The community should work with FDOT in evaluating the roadway for possible projects that discourage its use for high-speed, high-volume traffic movement and increase focus on local mobility and community character. Right-sizing techniques such as a road diet suggest strategies such as landscape medians, bicycle lanes, and pedestrian facilities and amenities. A plan to redevelop the bypassed roadway will improve livability and quality of life factors along the bypassed roadway. The City of Tampa reduced Nebraska Avenue, which is shown here, from 4 travel lanes to 2 travel lanes, a center turn lane, and 2 bike lanes. The redesign included a dedicated bus loading zone and ADA-compliant sidewalks and crosswalks. A significant reduction in the number of crashes in all categories resulted, including fewer bicycle and pedestrian crashes, despite the increase in bicyclists and pedestrians using the corridor. A mobility plan can also help support downtown. Downtowns contain valuable infrastructure such as connector roads and services, including fire and police protection, along with schools. Studies have shown that communities that have a plan in place to support the downtown following construction of a bypass have more vibrant downtowns than those that don't. Downtown development plans may include steps to improve the character and livability of the bypassed roadway. Strategies contained in a local mobility plan or a downtown development plan should contribute to the long-term viability of the downtown and support the improved mobility intended by the bypass. Key factors to address may include things like signage and advertising on the bypass that direct travelers to the downtown or bypassed area, incentives for infill development, pedestrian and bicycle and transit facilities and amenities, and long-term infrastructure maintenance. In conclusion, a bypass is often considered the best way to resolve issues of congestion and improve travel speed on the strategic intermodal system. Impacts of a bypass, both on the direct impacts and the indirect impacts, should be thoroughly understood. Indirect impacts include opening up areas to new development, redistribution of economic activity, and changes to land use, livability, community character, and local mobility. It is important to identify these impacts and develop strategies for impact mitigation and the long-term viability of the community. That concludes today's presentation. As you can see, the reports and presentations are available at the website shown on your screen, along with the names of the 2 research reports that were prepared as part of the research. If you have questions or would like additional information, please feel free to contact myself at my email address there, segerman@cutr.usf.edu, my research partner, Christine Williams, or the project manager at the Department of Transportation, Gary Sokolow. gary.sokolow@dot.state.fl.us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Karen, for a very informative presentation. And with that being said, I'm going to wish you all have a very great rest of your day.